Hello everybody, this is the Wikstrand, so there is no other way of saying this. The Omen has the single greatest horror-based soundtrack that has ever been recorded, ever. But is the movie as good as the soundtrack? Yes. Yes, it very much is so. But why is that and what is this movie about? That's what we're gonna find out today. This is my review of the original Omen. So Mr. Thorne, played by Gregory Peck, who is a top-ranked diplomat, is awaiting the arrival of his first child, and they are stationed in Rome at the moment. But the doctors comes and tells him that your son died shortly after the moment that he was born. But Catherine, his wife, doesn't know that yet, and he is crestfallen and he doesn't know what to do. What am I going to say to my wife? She was, waiting this with such anticipation and, all that stuff. And then he gets an odd offer. There was a woman that gave birth to a very healthy child, and she died at the same time as his son died. So why don't we make a swap? But you cannot tell your wife that this is technically not her child. And of course Mr. Thorne accepts this, because otherwise, well, it wouldn't be a movie, would it? So Damien grows up to become a very normal, healthy 5-year-old, and they have also, gotten a new job for Mr. Thorne, who has, become the ambassador of the United Kingdom. So they have set up a shop in a gorgeous house outside of London. Okay, so maybe not everything is completely normal with Damien, because he is never sick and sometimes he acts a little weird, and there are these occasions where accidents happen. Most recently at his 5th birthday, when the nanny hangs herself as a tribute of some kind to Damien. And while they're, coping with this and trying to adjust to their new nanny, Mrs. Baylock, who is a little bit unusual but seems to get very much along with Damien, we have the arrival of the priest. Now, I would argue that Father Spiletta should have, taken a couple of, night classes in rhetoric and how to approach strangers if you have, grave news which might sound a little far-fetched to them, because I thought he was a little bit too forceful to really, get the attention of Mr. Thorne, because he alleges that Damien is not a child. In fact, it is the spawn of the devil. But Thorne just kicks him out and tells him, fuck off, I don't want to see you again. If you ever come near me again, I will press charges and do all this stuff. But then he gets approached by this photographer who has been following him for some time, and he tells him that the priest died last night in a freak accident. But the fact is that I've been taking these photos that alludes to the fact that this was something that was coming, and the same thing with the nanny, and the same thing with me. I am next in line, so I am going to have to try to protect myself somehow. And he convinces Mr. Thorne to join him, to go to Italy and to search for answers, to find out if there is some truth in the bizarre statements that Spiletta has made, that Damien is in fact the son of the devil. So they leave for Italy, leaving Catherine alone with Damien. The relationship with them have not been the greatest, but she's trying to cope with the whole thing. But Mr. Thorne just thinks that, well, she's just tired and stuff like that. So The Omen is a horror movie that is almost completely devoid of jump scares. This is not a case of them, going around creepy houses and being scared by demons and spirits and stuff like that, coming out going blah, 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 or something like that. This movie has none of that. But you know what they have? They have atmosphere. They have tons and tons and tons of atmosphere, and the amazing cinematography. that really gives the, you know, gloomy, damp, and special 1970s feel to the whole thing, giving this movie so much personality to itself. And of course, wrapped up in all of this is of course Jerry Goldsmith's absolutely amazing soundtrack that is so frightening, that is so scary, that you can make nose picking scary just by adding his music. And they are able to get just so much out of this movie. It is enough, you know, with the fact that somebody's looking at a dog to make that feel more scary than the majority of all the movies that have been done for 20 years of horrible, badly done horror movies during the 2000 and the 2010s. I will say that the quality of horror movies since the 2020s has actually improved somewhat, so it is not as bad as it used to be. And Gregory Peck's very stern and very correct Mr. Thorne is the perfect casting for him. He's very good in this movie, by the way. And the movie has a pretty good pace, and the movie has, you know, memorable sequences, and everything is, you know, rolling on. But then we get to the ending, which I absolutely loved, and then we get the ending, where they pay off a little small detail that you might have forgotten, but then it comes back, and then you go, oh, that's why that thing was there. This movie has no, you know, excess in gore, or as I said, no jump scares, and there isn't really, you know, that much outside of the you know, fantastic atmosphere and sequences that are generally scaring while not on the surface being scary. So if you are, you know, a big gore fan, or if you want to have a high body count with, you know, people getting killed by masked villains, this is not a movie for you. This is probably why I'm very much against the majority of horror movies, because this is what I like about horror movies. It is supposed to be scary, but it is supposed to be an entertaining journey we're taking on. This feels more like an episode of Tintin almost, when they are, you know, traveling around and searching for clues in Italy. Maybe you could have dumped the entirety of, you know, the sequence in the tomb, and maybe the baboon sequence wasn't entirely necessary. I don't think you would have missed them if you would have cut them, but anyway, they're there and they are memorable. And if you would exclude the cars, the wardrobe and the haircuts, this movie is almost completely timeless. Unlike, you know, this completely unnecessary remake that they did 2006. And the only reason why that movie exists is just because they wanted to make this movie premiere the 6th of June 2006, 666. So, do I recommend this movie? I certainly do. I do not recommend any of the sequels that came after. None of them are good, and I'm just pretending that they don't exist, a bit like the Highlander movie. I haven't seen the first Omen yet that came out 2024. I heard a lot of good things about it, and this is one of these things that maybe this is the sequel that, you know, can and will work. I don't know what it is about, but I'm kind of curious about it. There are moments in this movie that takes a little bit too long to get through. And as I said, the baboon sequence and the sequence in the graveyard might not be, you know, sequences that have aged particularly good, except for the baboon sequence. That is not acting. That is true and utter fear. But there's also a little bit of, you know, upstart thing with this thing. It takes a little bit of time before we can actually get going. But once the ball is rolling, there is nothing stopping this movie. So you could argue, by the way, speaking about the unnecessary 2006 remake, that you have so many fantastic actors that should, you know, compensate for the fact that it is a shot-by-shot remake. But I just felt that it was so unnecessary, and it is basically about as unnecessary as the remake to Psycho is. Even though I think this movie technically is better than the remake of Psycho, but it's just because they have Liev Schreiber, Pete Bostwife, and a bunch of other actors who are actually quite awesome. By the way, we have to talk about Damien for a second. I try not to criticize child actors that much, because I usually try more to think about, is it because of the writing, is it because of the director, or is it because of the agent? I try never to malign children. They're kids, even though sometimes they can be quite bad. Unrelated picture of Jake Lloyd as Anakin Skywalker, but the guy who plays Damien in this movie is absolutely fantastic, with very small and very, very discreet manners. He's able to craft out a fantastic performance out of him when he, crumples his face a little bit and he looks a little bit, annoyed. And when he just, looks at people in a certain way, he can be quite scary, but you're never quite sure where he's going. And there is a sequence in the ending where I thought he made a small little thing that was absolutely brilliant. So it is a fantastic performance by the guy who plays Damien, and there is no bad acting in this movie, and all the characters are interesting, and small little side plots and subplots that actually benefits this movie quite a bit. And in the end, Omen is one of my absolute favorite horror movies of all time. Not the best supernatural horror movie that's ever been made, but damn near close. The Omen gets a very solid 90 points. There are some occasions where the movie drags just a little bit, and considering that this is a movie from the mid-70s, it still has a pretty okay pace for being so old as it is. Good actors, a fascinating and focused story that we're very keen to join Mr. Thorne in as he tries to get the answers in Italy. And as I said, if you've never seen this movie, do see this movie. If you've seen this movie, don't watch the sequels and don't watch the remake. I can't say anything yet regarding the first Omen, but the Omen, as it stands now, is one of the best horror movies from the 1970s. So have you seen Omen? Which one is your favorite? And do you actually like some of the sequels? Have you seen the first Omen? Comment below, and I'll see you next time from, well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.